inside the European AI Week. We are very happy to present what we do at Euranova during this week, as the goal is to present what's about Belgium, what's happening in Belgium, data and AI-wise. And we are very happy to share our take about this topic. First, my name is Maryse Colson. I'm culture manager and a spokeswoman at Euranova, and I'm very happy to be with you this morning. First and foremost, we will present a very short presentation of Euranova. Euranova was born 13 years ago with a very special business model. We created Euranova to have a computer science excellence center at the heart of Europe. And our goal was to have three centers inside the same company. A private research center to explore the science of tomorrow and to master the technologies of data and machine learning and deep learning. The second branch is, of course, the advisory at Euranova. We help clients realize their ambitions thanks to AI technologies. And at the heart of both, when we see a recurrent problem at clients and when we spot a cutting-edge technology that's able to tackle this recurrent problem, we incubate a solution. Should it be a technology brick, a software, or a process, a framework? Advisory-wise, we believe in cross-pollinating expertise, saying that we do not have an industrial sector of reference. We work with many different industries because we firmly believe, and we already observed, that what's interesting for a telecom corporate would be interesting for bank and insurance. You can use the same technology to address different problems. What's interesting for a retailer can be useful for the automotive sector. And we find that this is really interesting to cross problematics to find solutions. Our research center already has more than 50 scientific publications in international conferences. We try our best to keep the same academic requirements for our papers. We really want to publish in tier 1 conferences to be very at the top, at the edge of research. And finally, our solutions incubator already has failed and succeeded in designing products and startups. Here are a few of them. Okay, this is for Euranova. But what I really want to share with you today is what have we observed in the past years here in Belgium? What we've observed is that almost every company here in Belgium have understood how AI is important, is critical to realize their ambitions. All companies who have data want to tap into them. They really know that they are sitting on a real treasure, and they know that they will find in their data added value for their business. Business units want to innovate and disrupt. This is incredible. A lot of different business units, should it be marketing, operation, HR, administration, all those departments are aware that they can tap into their data, that they can tap into artificial intelligence to tackle their challenges. And a lot of technical departments and IT departments know that they will use technologies to address those business problems. IT is no more a department that you will find in the basement of a building. Now, data scientists stand beside business people to address problems. But companies already know that there are a lot of impediments on the way to AI. First, there are regulations and GDPR here in Belgium. GDPR is so important to protect citizens, to protect European citizens, and also to trust companies when they use AI for users. But still, regulations is an impediment on the way to AI. Business units, they want to innovate, but they have to rationalize their cost and their budget. And it's not easy to keep a very low budget while trying to innovate. They really need the support, and they know they need the support of the management. In the very beginning, a few years ago, we saw a lot of different little teams in corporations that was able to develop proof of concepts. But then when you have to put proof of concept into production, it costs a lot. And you need the support of your management to do it. And finally, of course, we know that companies know that AI models will be useful, but how can they be sure that they are using clean data, right data to feed their model? They know that between data sources and AI model, there's still a gap to fill in. So those are the challenges. Data management, taking care of data is the the main challenge of the companies, and they know that there's a problematic around spotting data. Imagine in a company there are so many data. You have data in the HR department, in administration, in marketing, in sales, in operations, so much data, Excel sheets, videos, images, documents, files, so many data. Where are the golden data? Where are the golden source? You have to say, okay, those data are over there. So spotting data is the first problem. The next problem is labeling data, knowing what's inside your Excel sheets, being able to say this column corresponds to this information. You can't imagine how much company we've met, and they told us, okay, we have to tackle this problem. Maybe we could use Facebook or Google data. I will do an extract. Okay, and when we have the extract, we see a lot of different columns. And sometimes we ask, okay, what's inside those columns? And managers just don't know what's inside their columns because there are so many tools that provide data and very interesting data, but still we have to label them to be able to use them. The third problem is cleaning data. And if you already experience cleaning an Excel sheet, you know how this job is really not the most interesting job of all time. Clean data are so important to have relevant and accurate results at the other hand of your AI model. If you use data, you have to be sure that your data are cleaned. The next challenge is storing your data. What will you choose between a data mesh, a data lake, a data hub? What's the difference? Why will you do one or another one? So many questions about storing your data. Is it better to use the cloud? Do you want to use on-premises solutions? Do you need a provider? Will you build your own solutions? So many questions around storing data. The fifth problematic is routing data. It's linked to the fact that you have many data sources and you want to feed your application. You want to serve your users. You want to feed your AI models with the right data. And you have to bring the data to their goal. But how will you do that? You have to build some pipelines, and the pipelines sometimes must support real-time processing. How will you do that? This is another big question for people around data. And of course, the sixth challenge is governing data. We in Europe, with requirements, with GDPR, it's so important to abide by them. So how will you govern your data? You have to say, okay, this person can use those data for this use. And if you do not do it now, you will have to do it later. So the time you give now to governing your data will be useful for later, but still, you have to do it. How will you start? Do you need the support of a legal person? Will you need a framework? Will you be all alone on this task? Who has to be involved in the reflection in the work? So many different questions. So I don't know if your work um, is to taking care of your data, but maybe you can find yourself, you can rely in those challenges. Um, so this is a question I ask you. Can you recognize yourself in those challenges? Do you meet those challenges? You can maybe answer by yes or no in the chat, so we can see if you also observed those difficulties in your company. Okay, so for Arno, it's yes, right. Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So taking care of the data is the very the very start for relevant AI. And what we observe is that Belgian companies are completely aware of this difficulty. And the question is how to tackle the challenge. And we will share here our answer with you today. And our answer is about using the right technologies, using the right tools, and using the right skills. And for the past years, um, at Euranova, we have invested a lot, tremendously, in those challenges, in those technologies, in those tools, and in those skills to help Belgian and European companies. And of course, you can find that the use skills is linked to advisory branch, and tools are linked to incubator, and the right technologies have been explored by our R&D center. And I will explain that to you with more details just right now. So in advisory, um, we have invested a lot in the skills of our people. What we've observed, Euranova was born, as I said, in 2008. And at the very beginning, we had a lot of people involved in data sciences. And for many years, it was just about data scientists. But for 4 years now, what we observed is that the need of data engineers is growing. And so we are asking a lot of people, our data scientists, to and or developers to have new data engineering skills. And we observed a shift in the requests also of our clients that are asking for data engineers. So there is really an evolution of this uh, request of skills. And it's ongoing, and it's still difficult because there's still very few data engineers here in Belgium. The academic cursus is not ad hoc for the moment. And as you may know, the Harvard Business Review said one day that the sexiest job of the 21st century is data scientist. And we really, really hope that the trend will change to data engineer, because we need data engineers. Um, Also, inside Euranova, we have different communities of practice. And maybe you also have those community of practice in your own company. Those community of practice are group of people interested in the same topic, sharing knowledge, designing assets for the company. They get informed of what's happening in the world about a very specific topic. And at Euranova, of course, we have the data science community of practice, we have the development community of practice, but now we have data governance community of practice and software development, data engineering communities of practice. So those people are really tackling this problem together and developing assets to be used internally at Euranova, but also to help our clients and our partners. And finally, this is one of our motto inside Euranova: caring is sharing. So we try to share those knowledge with our network, with our people, with young graduates. Also, we organize hackathon, and last year it was just about data science, but this year it will be about data engineering, to say to young people, um, data here is data engineering, and it's so important to do data science, to have a good basics in data engineering. So this is for the part of skills and people development. What's about development of solutions? To start with AI model, the first thing you have to do is to collect your data and get your data available. And so a few years ago, we created Digazoo, that is a data engineering platform to tackle the problem of data availability, collecting the data from all your resources, put them in the data lake, and share them with your whole company. We did that with the support of the Région Wallonne, who really helped us to, who invest in us and who believed in us to design the product. And now the solutions is going to be a startup very soon, and it's it's up and it's running, and so we try to develop that because what we saw is that companies don't know how to do that, and when they have this tool, they can master their data. They can be totally autonomous with the data. You just have to dig as a, let's say, is this a kind of big giant cannelloni you put in your spaghetti plate? You have so many data pipelines, they are all merged together, and then you put them in the Digazoo cannelloni, and of course, it's rationalized. So this is one thing we invest in the creation of a solution to get the data available for Belgian companies and European companies. And in research, we worked on the other challenges. Maybe you know already that our R&D center defines every 2 years a research program. And for the past years, those research programs, Jericho, Asgard, and Bishop, have been about those data management problems. Jericho was about data management. How can I manage my data? How can I govern them? Asgard was about data quality. And Bishop, which is going to just start right now, is about data complexity. Let's be more precise about those tracks. So, as you see, and should you want more details, do not hesitate to check on our research website. We really tried with Jericho, a very first research program supported by the Région Wallonne, to tackle the problematic of data management. How can I create a topic? How can I tune the parameters of data engineering automatically? And how can I deal with event processing? So how can I process data flowing, which is far more difficult than processing data that are static. The second program of research was Asgard, and the question here was about data quality. Asgard focused on the fact that when you have a AI model fed by data, sometimes when your data are not qualified, the result of your AI model won't be accurate. And thanks to Asgard, we succeeded in developing AI models that were able to say, okay, your results, the results of your model is X% accurate. If you correct your database of X percent or Y percent, you will gain accuracy in your model. So everything data quality, in fact, was managed by AI. And finally, Bishop is about data complexity. The more data are complex, the more they will be represented by a graph. You see, the graph are like clouds of edges and spots, and you put link between spots and you understand correlation between your data. And when data are very complex, it's really relevant to use graphs. But the problem is graph change through times. So should you want to use an AI model on those graphs, you will have to adapt your model. So this complexity will be tackled by our next research program, along with the fact that to tackle the problematic of regulation and GDPR and privacy, you can not use your real data. You can create synthetic data. You can create whole new data that in the real world do not exist, but they will help your company to treat your data, to tackle your data. The problematic is what about minorities in your graph? What about everything you can't see in your graph that is inside it and that will be useful for your target? So Bishop will focus on the problematic of data complexity. And so you see that we try with our solution and with our research programs to cover the whole data value chain, so we can really help and advise our customer to get their data, be sure to manage them correctly, be sure to have the best quality of data, and finally to deal with the complexity of their data. Let's now talk about a use case in the automotive sector. And I will tell you more about this one because it is really interesting. We observed that this company really did the best to tackle the problematic of AI first, data before. Um, it's very interesting, and I will be interested to have your take about this story. So let's talk about it. Um, our client was a leader within a very competitive industry. Uh, and it saw very early the potential of using data to improve production efficiency and to create the best possible customer experience. Those were the two goals at the very first start of our customer. And how? An important step of this journey was to create a pan-European data analytics landscape. And they wanted one single platform across Europe to streamline all of their data collection and processing, and to support their machine learning and real-time analytics problems. In order to prove the concepts, our client selected three initial business scenarios in three very different areas: marketing, customer service, and production. But they met many impediments on their way to AI, maybe just like you. First, a large number of siloed data sources had to be integrated to provide the necessary results. Second, they wanted to put in place a data hub that could scale for the changing and future needs, feed the AI and feed the BI efforts with real-time data. Plus, they wanted to meet all the governance and privacy requirements as GDPR. And last but not least, the timeline was very aggressive and the pressure on existing resources was already at an all-time high, so an internal build was not an option. Our client did realize that there's a huge gap between being able to show business value through proof of concepts and deploying industrial strength solutions in productions. As a solution, they chose to rationalize their efforts and they made very wise decisions. First, they chose Bigazo that was for them the best tool to use according to their current and future needs. They apply data governance principles to organize the use of their data at a company level. They work um, to have a profitable in the future. So, in fact, they are gaining time just right now. And finally, they invested massively in people. They aligned everyone on the same objective. They gave training sessions and courses on Python, data governance, data engineering to the PM, to the data scientists, to the business people, to everyone. They really shift the whole organization to a data driven company and to a data driven mindset. So what I think is really interesting in this use case is to observe that at the very start, the problem was how can I um, how can I put my proof of concept in production? And very quickly, they realize that to be very relevant, to be very efficient, they have to adopt a company wide approach. So they decided that they will change the technology. But when choosing a new technology, they realize that they have to onboard everyone on this technology, on this target, and on a new mindset. So the very first goal that was to put proof of concept into production changed to let's be a data driven company and let's put all our efforts to target to reach that goal. The key takeaways you can bring home today are the following, and I hope it will be useful to you. The first takeaway that I want to give you is eat the frog first. Data governance is not the easiest part of the job. Deciding where are your data, who can use what data, let's define role, let's define who can use what for what use. It can be very a tremendous job, but if you start with this job, you won't have to do it in the future and you will give time. Plus, you will be sure that the data are well used, that you are GDPR compliant, and so you can really trust your model. You can really trust the result of your AI models. So eat the frog first. Find yourself someone who can really help you govern your data and also inform people in your company what's data governance. It's not a monster, it's something useful, something you can trust, and something you will rely on in the future. The second thing is try your best to align your team, to get the support of your top management, to rationalize the budgets and the efforts around this objective to become a data driven company. We observed very different scenarios in the past years, and we saw a company who wanted to start this data driven shift 6 years ago. They are not quite arrived yet because there are so many political games and so many impediments on the way because people are not aligned together. People are working in their own corners, and it's a nightmare to reach the final goal. Here, with this use case in the automotive sectors, what is what is really remarkable is that everyone was in the same direction and it was perfect. You can also think about implementing multidisciplinary teams. So you have business people talking with data scientists, talking with data engineers. And so in that case, when you think about a use case, you will have the business objective with the business people. You will have the technology with the data scientists. And you will have the side how is it possible to make that happen with your data engineer. So do not hesitate to mix people together. The more we are mixed, the more ideas can ignite themselves. And finally, and that's linked to the multidisciplinary team, I think that starting with production in mind and failing fast is a really good approach. Start small, start with a very small use case you can put into production to um, test your new configuration, to test your tool. So you will be able to stick to the how. How will you do that? Where are my data? How can I bring them into my AI model? Those are the three key takeaways we wanted to share with you today. I will be very interested to have your take about that. What's about your own company? Did you meet those challenges too? Do you think those takeaways are relevant or not? So I suggest we still have time for questions. We still have time for a bit of conversations. So, should you want to share something, please do not hesitate to turn on your mic and share your take with us.
It's a little bit silent. So does this mean there is not experience yet, or how could we interpret this? Um, Maybe the question is, how many of you already started such a data governance program or a similar initiative to tackle these challenges Maryse was referring to?
Maybe we have
None of you?
a
None of
shy.
you have such experience? Do you recognize the challenges that today the AI machine learning models are facing due to the data in general, the quality of data, availability of data? Ah, okay. An answer from Catherine.
A great starting point for us. Great. So you confirm
That's
that data governance is a good starting point for this journey. That's interesting. Thank you, Catherine.
other
Okay, maybe
experiences.
maybe maybe the public has some questions that hasn't been answered or some topic that they expected to be covered in this presentation and we did not. Are you curious of something that we didn't talk about today? Should you have any questions in the future, please do not hesitate to reach out with an email. I will be very happy to put you in contact with an expert. Okay. Thank you everyone for your attendance today. I wish you a very great European AI week. And maybe we will meet again during this week. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you to all.